So we've all heard about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. The question is, why are people for them? Why are people against them? And what is it that we need to know? Okay, are we going to be affected as crypto investors? Is this going to bring more or less transparency and trust into the industry? We don't really know exactly yet, but I do want to outline a few major issues that I see for us just as citizens of the world, okay? And it's already been started in China, okay? So I'm just going to highlight this. Let's just have a quick look down here. So look, what is a CBDC? So a central bank digital currency is here we go. General agreement among central banks that a CBDC is, as the ECB describes it, European Central Bank, is a central bank liability offered in digital form for use by citizens and businesses for their retail payments. It would complement the current offering of cash and wholesale central bank deposits, which basically means what we're looking at here is a bit of cash that is then digital. Okay, so it's given to you by the government, and that means that it's cash, right? You can then go spend it. You can do whatever you want with it. Okay, we already see different people doing this. There's a bill, this just was posted recently, 3 days ago. A bill on digital ruble has been submitted to Russian parliament. Well, obviously, they want to do this to try and, if a lot of their cash is being seized and held overseas, right, then obviously people can't get their cash. But if they just say, oh, look, we cancel all of that, and then you can have this new one that we've created and we own that people can't take away from us, then people can't go through all of these different, what are they called, sanctions. So they can't sanction, a billionaire's bank account, one of the oligarchs, because it's created by the government, and the government can just say, okay, well, actually, let's just cancel, and that money, we'll just delete that, and then we can start give you some new money. So it helps them get around things like this. And obviously, in a country like Russia, I believe that they are quite a big fan, potentially, of going through this kind of ownership of, because it's a communist country, of the citizens themselves. So it's very much an authoritarian type government. I'm not going to say a dictatorship. They do have, I believe they have, elections and votes. How many other parties there are, and how likely that other party is to survive if he was elected, I don't know. But that's a question for a different story. So, we see different people and different countries going through this. Going through China, we all know that China are going down the route of a CBDC. They had one actually ready and being tested during the Winter Olympics earlier on in 2022, so like a year ago. They're really very far ahead, but this is driving concerns. So as we can see, China worries drive South Korea central bank to CBDC research. So we see lots of different countries all doing it. Everyone's talking also about the Federal Reserve. Now, there are some worries in, shall we say, the Western world. It seems to have taken a lot more integration into the society when it's like a communist country and you don't really have a choice, i.e., Russia, China. But there are massive risks, okay? There are massive risks. So big risks and unclear benefits may scupper CBDCs. So this is from both sides of the ocean. We're looking at, the government's like, why are we spending so much money on digital cash when we already have cash? We have electronic payments. We have everything. We don't really need this. And it's going to be very hard to decide who builds it. Is it going to be built on Ethereum? Is it going to be built on, I don't know, Algorand or whatever? Like, who's going to make this a thing? And how much is it going to cost us? And what are going to be the benefits? Now, some of the benefits really come, and these are benefits to the government, I might add, come from this word programmability. Okay. Now, look, I've mentioned this briefly before. Programmability in money is not good for us as citizens, okay? Because the way I see this, some of the major benefits for a government is, at the moment, the US, or they still are actually in California, which is mental, giving out stimmy checks, hey, we want to stimulate the economy. Here's some money, go spend it. Yeah, spend it in like your local economy, spend it to the local shop owners. Don't go and buy stuff from China and boost their economy, boost your own local economy. And this is then where, if the government are able to see where you do and don't spend your money, they can begin to get quite a good profile on you. Okay. Also, it means you can't buy drugs and stuff, which doesn't really matter for, normal people, but it matters to some people, it matters to some people. But even things that are frowned upon, gambling, for example, people might not want you to gamble. The government might say, hey, hang on, you've been gambling in the past, you got loads of debt from it. So as soon as you get money, you're not allowed to spend that on gambling. And that all comes in from this programmability story that we're going to look into a little bit further here. So what is programmability? Here we go. So it's the mechanism for specifying the automated behavior of that money through a computer program, which basically means if you are a government employee, if you receive any money from the government via a stimulus check, whether it's from benefits from, in the UK, we give single mothers benefits, we give disabled people benefits, anyone who can't necessarily work for themselves, the government has a welfare program, which is pretty much the same throughout every country, in order to help those people, which is a very, very good idea. But the issue becomes what if the government says, well, you can only spend this money within the next month? Because that's really what the stimulus checks are all about. Putting it in a bank is kind of rubbish for the government. They've just given you £2,000 or $2,000 and you go and stick it in the bank. That's not what they want. It's a stimulus. You're meant to stimulate the economy. You're meant to spend it at your local shops. You're supposed to get that circulation of money going well, because then the shop owner, he then makes money, but then he goes and buys more supplies, which again comes from someone else in the same country. And you just get money rotating. And that's the sign of a really good economy. So this whole programmability would be great for the Fed. It would be great for the government. It would be great for the people who are looking after the overall country, because their GDP looks great. And also, they can kind of really track how to perform or get their economy working really well. But again, the issue comes when they tell you that you can't go and buy, a bottle of alcohol for your birthday because you've been deemed an alcoholic in the past, or you can't go and gamble, or you can't go and, spend money on holidays to, I don't know, China, because the US and China are in a trade war. So there's all of these different things that come into it. And also, I don't know if you remember here, so there was the Canadian government. What they did was there was loads of protests from the Canadian government, and they essentially, everyone just said, well, hang on, why don't I just start receiving donations in Bitcoin? Because I think the bank accounts or something like this were looking at being frozen by the government. So the government, then everyone turned to crypto and said, okay, well, let's give crypto wallets. And now what we saw was that lawmakers were trying to freeze Bitcoin wallets of Canadian truckers who were protesting against the vaccine mandate. And so this is exactly what I'm talking about. The world is coming to, whether you call it enlightenment, whether you call it Tateism, this whole like Andrew Tate thing of, getting out of the matrix, etc. We want to try and step away from government control. Now, that's not easy, especially when you look at, especially China, but most other governments probably beginning a social credit system. So this is obviously, look, this would probably be on the blockchain. The CBDC would be on the blockchain. So everything is very open and available, and also, fairly secure, but very well documented. And so because it's well documented, we could have a complete invasion of your privacy. No matter what you do, it's tracked. No matter where you spend your money, how you spend it, how much you spend, whether you're one of these people who spends all your money at the beginning of the month and you just live poor until the payday comes again. These are different aspects of our life that we like to keep fairly private, especially when you consider a social credit system like in China, where if you smoke, you get minus numbers. If you do a good deed, you get plus numbers. And so your eligibility for your credit score, eligibility to buy a car, to do, to live in a certain area of the country, all depends on your credit score. So I think this whole move towards CBDCs is actually, I think it's not a good idea. I really, really don't think it's a good idea. And also, we're looking at this where the godfather of crypto wants to create a privacy-focused CBDC, because this is the major concern. So is there a solution? So David, I'm going to say Charm. I might have this. I might have butchered it. Sorry, Mister. But David Charm. He was. Let me go through this. So he developed the protocols that act as the basis of DigiCash, which was the world's first digital currency secured by cryptography. So moving down here, basically, look, censorship-resistant CBDCs. So it all started where at the Swiss National Bank, they invited David Chaum to Zurich for a conference and said he wanted to make e-cash great again. So, electronic cash, basically a CBDC. And they were like, oh, maybe you can help us. Let's go do that. But anyway, it's called Project Tourbillon. He developed a cryptographic protocol that proves a CBDC can protect privacy. This is what we want, because I think if we end up in a scenario, and it's a bit of that, like, the frog in the boiling water, where a little bit changes, you have your identity on your phone, and then you have, what else might you have? You've got all your payments on your phone, and everything is on your phone, which is connected to a server. And so all of this data is being gathered. And this is why you get targeted adverts and why there was so much, controversy around Apple taking off these targeted ads, because there's so much like information that's being collected about you. You have targeted ads, you have a targeted feed on Instagram, Facebook, everything. And no one's is the same. So what he's looking to do is he's trying to use a little bit, I'm not going to go into the details. We can see down here, he's talking about quantum computing, and he's going into so many different, different elements here. But the overall idea is that he's looking to try and get some type of barrier where you can have these, where do you say, alien keys? There was a picture of an alien. Where is it? Maybe I thought that was a picture of an alien. It's not a picture of an alien. But anyway, so you want to have these, basically inalienable. Here we go. That's it. But you'd have a secret phrase. So the idea is people, just like a Bitcoin wallet, people can't go in and access that. But if everything is issued by the government, they know when the money has come in, and then they can just track the money. It's like a parcel you get from, I don't know, UPS. Money has gone here, money has gone here, money has gone here. You can track it. And so how much was spent at each location, everything. So I really don't like it. The reason why I brought this up is because the BIS, which is the central bank for central banks, came out and they had quite a worrying paper. And I'm going to do that in a separate video, perhaps tomorrow, maybe later on today, where they talk about the rules of CBDCs. So you can have, certain banks holding certain amounts of crypto. You can also then have, what's the plan for a CBDC? Now, just look, bear in mind, if they're all created on Ethereum, if a CBDC is created on Ethereum, for example, central banks are going to have enough of that, of their coin, or enough Ethereum to make sure that their central bank or their coin doesn't go down, because the transactions are going to be all managed and paid for in Ethereum. So they need to have Ethereum to pay for the transactions that happen, So we can imagine very much like a flood towards one chain. If it was on Solana, for example, and it went down, they obviously wouldn't be able to process. You wouldn't be able to spend your money. It's ridiculous. So they have to be very careful. Now, this is where I begin to see pretty much a forecast of us having an awful lot of centralization towards a few different coins. This can be by the institutions. Because one thing to notice is 2% of a central bank's digital, and I'll go into this in the next video, but 2% is the maximum limit of a central bank's overall portfolio that can hold crypto. Okay, those are the rules given by the BIS, the central bank of the central banks. Now, 2.7% of all the central banks is $3.7 trillion, which is insane. That's a crazy amount of money. So I think we're going to see this as a bit of a trend. Our freedom is taken away bit by bit. Never trust any government. And Mr. New Creation is absolutely correct there. It is every single day, every single year, every single day. We're always seeing it. I don't know. Let me know what you think on CBDCs. Like I said, I will be doing another video shortly just to kind of go through some more about how this is all going to work. But I don't trust them. Anyway, stay safe.